Hello everybody, my name is Adrian SEDLO. I'm the founding partner of SEDLO Law Firm, which is a Luxembourg boutique firm that specializes in investment funds, investment vehicles generally, and in corporate and financial law in Luxembourg. Today we're going to give you some guidance on how to find the right Luxembourg vehicle that you would like to set up. So Luxembourg has been for decades a prime jurisdiction for the setting up of fund structures and investment vehicle structures, and investors love to invest into Luxembourg investment vehicles, and this is the reason why asset managers or initiators love to come to Luxembourg to set up their fund or investment vehicle into which these investors will invest. So very often these asset managers or other initiators don't have an exact idea about the investment structure to be put in place. So they would typically ask us as Luxembourg Council what the best structure could be. So this video is intended, in fact, to give you a broad overview of what we as Luxembourg Council would typically look at when we try to find in our Luxembourg toolbox the right investment vehicle to be put in place. So let's start right away. So what, as Luxembourg Council, would we look at when determining the best vehicle to be put in place? So the first aspect that we would look at is the investors. So when we talk about the investors, there are in fact two fundamental questions that need to be answered. The first question is, what type of investors are to be targeted by the initiators or by the investment vehicle? And the other question is, what type of investment vehicle are the investors looking for? So first question, which type of investors are targeted by the fund or by the initiators? There are broadly two types of investors. You first have the professional, well-informed investors on the one hand, and less sophisticated investors like non-professional retail investors. So if you look from the standpoint of the Luxembourg investment vehicle, a professional or well-informed investor can legally invest into any type of Luxembourg vehicle, be it a UCITS, a specialized investment fund, a reserved alternative investment fund, an ordinary Luxembourg company, a partnership, or a securitization vehicle also. However, you would like to target non-professional, less informed retail investors. There are only a few certain vehicles that would be suitable, like UCITS, LTIFs, ordinary companies or SPVs, or partnerships. But even for these vehicles like UCITS, LTIFs, ordinary companies, securitization vehicles or partnerships that would be suitable from a Luxembourg law standpoint and from the standpoint of the vehicle itself, for non-professional, less informed retail investors, you should still check, if you want to market the shares or units of this vehicle into certain countries, you should check in these countries whether a marketing or a subscription by this type of less informed retail investor is authorized or not. So it's not only a question of Luxembourg law, but it's also a question of foreign law. And then the second element that we would look at is, what do the investors need? Which type of investment vehicle would the investors like to invest into? And there are several options. Some investors would need to invest into a regulated vehicle, let's say a regulated AIF, so alternative investment fund. Some others must invest or would like to invest into a structure that is AIFMD compliant. Others could invest into any type of unregulated vehicle. So according to this, some vehicles will be suitable and some others not. So if the investor would like to have a regulated vehicle, we could offer UCITS, we could offer Part 2 funds, we could offer specialized investment funds, investment companies into risk capital, so CCARs, we could offer LTIFs, or we could even offer regulated securitization vehicles. Then, if the investor would like an AIFMD compliant structure, we could set up any type of alternative investment fund, because the vehicle would need to qualify as an alternative investment fund that would be managed by an AIFM, so an alternative investment fund manager, and that would be subject to the law on AIFMs. So if the investors would look for unregulated vehicles, we could typically offer a RIFE, although the reserved alternative investment funds need to appoint an external AIFM, so would be subject still to the AIFMD. Or we could offer ordinary companies or ordinary partnerships like an SCS, Société en Commandite Simple. This would typically be designed for German investors. They like to invest into an SCS. An SCSP, which is a Société en Commandite Spéciale, which is a special limited partnership where UK investors love to invest, or an unregulated securitization vehicle. Again, this vehicle would typically issue debt securities mainly. The second point that we would look at is the features of the investment vehicle itself, and there we would look at what the vehicle can do and what it cannot do. And there, the first point that we would look at is, can the vehicle create sub-funds or compartments that would be segregated one from the other? So if you would like to have an investment vehicle that can create a sub-fund or a compartment that would be segregated from other sub-funds and compartments, it appears that almost all fund structures in Luxembourg are capable of creating such compartments or sub-funds. So if you would like to have such a vehicle, we could use UCITS, we could use Part 2 funds, we could use a specialized investment fund, we could use a RIFE, we could use an investment company into risk capital, we could use a securitization vehicle or an LTIF. As opposed to that, ordinary Luxembourg companies or ordinary partnerships or ordinary SPVs that would not be a securitization vehicle, they are not able to create sub-funds or compartments. And in such case, if you would like to use these vehicles, then you should consider using one of these vehicles for every transaction that you would like to carry out. The second point that we would look at when we look at the features of the investment vehicle would be to determine if there are risk spreading, risk diversification rules that would be applicable to the investment vehicle. And there it appears that the vehicles that have the strictest risk spreading rules are the UCITS. Other vehicles that have risk spreading rules are Part 2 funds, specialized investment funds, RIFEs that don't invest into risk capital. Vehicles without risk spreading rules would be investment companies into risk capital. it would be securitization vehicles, be they regulated or unregulated. It would be ordinary companies or partnerships, or RIFs that would only invest into risk capital. The third point that we would look at is, can the vehicle acquire any type of assets, or are there any restrictions as to the type of assets that an investment vehicle can hold? So certain vehicles like UCITS, C-cars, LTIFs or RIFs that invest into risk capital, they have restrictions as to the assets that they can own. Other vehicles don't have any restrictions, like Part 2 funds, specialized investment funds, RIFs that don't invest only into risk capital, ordinary companies, partnerships, SPVs, or securitization vehicles don't have any restrictions as to the assets that they can hold. Then the final point that we would look at, and especially tax counsel, is whether the investment vehicle would have access to double taxation treaties. And there, country by country, case by case analysis would need to be carried out. As a rule of thumb, it could be said that all vehicles that would typically be tax transparent, so that would be incorporated in the form, let's say for a fund, in the form of an FCP or a securitization fund or a partnership, they would typically be tax transparent. And from a Luxembourg standpoint, these vehicles would in principle not be able to take advantage of double taxation treaties, but again, this needs to be checked on a case-by-case basis. Other investment vehicles in the form of a corporate capital company with fixed capital or a variable capital like a CCAV would in principle, from a Luxembourg standpoint at least, in theory be able to take advantage of double taxation treaties, but here again this would need to be checked on a case-by-case basis, and foreign law should also be taken into account. So foreign tax counsel should also be involved in this assessment. So this has been our broad overview over what we would look at, or what you should look at, when deciding which Luxembourg investment vehicle you would like to use. So thank you for watching this video, and if you would like to have a summarizing chart, because it's quite a complex matter, if you would like to have a summarizing chart which summarizes in a more precise way what I just told you, you will find the link in the description of this video. So thanks for watching, and if you have any question or if you need any information, you can contact me at my email address that will appear below. So thanks for watching again, and talk to you next time in a new video. Thank you.